Welcome to An Author Dissects a Narrative with your host, Husna Haze. In this captivating series, we will unravel the intricate tapestries of your favorite movies, TV shows, games, books, and beyond. Prepare to embark on a journey of analysis and exploration as we uncover the hidden gems and profound themes within these beloved narratives. Remember to show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing for a regular dose of insightful content. Let's delve into the realms of storytelling together. Welcome back to the Deconstructed Universe. That's right, we're back. Now, I had to pause the first time I watched House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 3, because I was just in shock at how Rhaenyra was maneuvering. And this really shouldn't have shocked me as much as it did shock me, because Viserys was her father, and we all know Otto Hightower ruled for Viserys. And I have to say a sidebar for people who think that Daemon Targaryen would have been a great hand of the king to his brother. He would have not been a great hand of the king to his brother, not the way that he's maneuvering. This all just puts into perspective that Viserys Targaryen inherited Jaehaerys's peace. He inherited Jaehaerys's rule, and he inherited a kingdom at peace. And he was not built to be a ruler. Viserys always had his head buried in the sand. Viserys always had other people ruling for him. Viserys always just said he did what he wanted to do. He was king. And I feel like it's the way of kings to put their desires onto other people and make them happen. He named Rhaenyra heir, but he never actually taught his daughter. He never actually taught his daughter to rule. And are we surprised that also Aegon doesn't really know how to rule either? And this all comes down to their father being a terrible ruler. And I don't think Viserys would have gone as far as he went without Otto Hightower at his side. Now, the first time I watched this episode, I had to pause, like I mentioned. I was 21 minutes and 40 seconds in when I was just in shock about the way that Rhaenyra was maneuvering. But when this episode opened up, first of all, we get a sweeping shot of Lord Ormond's army with, Tessarion there, and we've got Daemon and the dragon seeds. This shot was beautiful, and this shot also brought into perspective the stakes, basically. Like, things are really moving forward fast. Things are happening really quickly, and we see that now Rhaenyra has taken the Iron Throne, and Daemon is here to basically get his enemies to kneel. And as much as I don't like the way that feudal system worked, and the way that things were done back in the day, like, at the end of the day, Daemon's advice about having incinerated the entirety of Ormond's army would have worked out for the better for Rhaenyra in the long run. But at the end of the day, like, there was just so many Easter eggs and things that happened in this episode. But the first things first, Rhaenyra needs a therapist, okay? She's out here hallucinating Jacaerys. She's out here just seeing rats everywhere, and I think that was a metaphor for the rats that she's surrounded by. And this really puts into perspective, if you guys have read the books about Rhaenyra being the half-year queen and how she ended up really being hated and despised by the small folk. Rhaenyra never really endeared herself to the people. But before we get into all of that, we need to first of all open up and dissect this scene into Daemon and Ormond facing off. And Daemon is funny. He is funny. I can just tell he's feeling himself. He was like, listen, you need to bend the knee, Lord Ormond. And Lord Ormond was like, and if I don't bend the knee? And he was like, Ulf over here would like to be the new lord of Old Town. He would have loved to settle into your quarters, your chambers at Old Town at the High Tower. And Ormond is like, listen, like, if it was just about me, I would have resisted, but I've got my army to worry about. I've got people to worry about, so I'll bend the knee. Then Daemon is so shady. He literally lets this man bend the knee and turns to walk away. And he's like, oh wait, I forgot something. I need my nephew Daron. And Ormond gives up Daron. Now that should have been That should have been a red flag to Damon, but obviously it wasn't. But I clocked this in the beginning, and if you guys go on the channel in the community tabs, I did post that. Did you guys see the redhead with Ormond? That was his nephew, Daron. And this gambit that people were saying, oh no, that's really Daron down there with like the silver hair. And I was like, you guys, I think like that Daron was the guy with the red hair. Now, I don't know if they've decided to dye his hair red, because Ormond is trying to obviously play a bit of a gambit here, like Prince and the Pauper thing going on here. But whatever it is, basically he gives up the imposter Daron and he's taken. Now, we cut to King's Landing, and when we cut to King's Landing, this is when I really started just really being like, this shows that Viserys was a terrible ruler. He never prepared his daughter, and it makes sense why Aegon is also not a great ruler. But with Aegon, it's a bit twofold, because Otto wanted a puppet, and so did Alicent, but they never really prepared him for ruling. But how can you prepare somebody for ruling when their own father isn't even preparing them for ruling? If Viserys was serious about having his daughter sit the Iron Throne after him, disregarding the laws that put Viserys on the throne, he should have insisted that Rhaenyra rule, like in some capacity, made her hand, maybe made her an advisor. She did sit the small council table for a while, but we never really saw that in full action. We know that Alicent ruled in Viserys' stead when he was unwell for years with her father. So if Viserys was really serious about this, he would have prepared his daughter, and he would have prepared his sons to support his daughter in her rule. But he didn't do that. So obviously we're in King's Landing, the rats are running loose, and the rats, obviously, as mentioned before, is a metaphor to what's going on, like how she's surrounded by rats, basically. So we get this monologue of Rhaenyra. She's all teary-eyed and she's talking about her father. She's reminiscing about the memories. She feels haunted by all these ghosts. And Daemon is like, Ormond bent the knee. We should have burned them all. And Rhaenyra is like, I need to show the people and do what my father wanted me to do. I need to be the ruler my father thought and wanted me to be. And I'm like, Viserys didn't teach you anything about ruling, okay? And it shows right now. I know all of you guys are Team Black, but we have to call a spade a spade. Rhaenyra cannot rule. Yes, she was at a disadvantage, but she has... Listen, she can't even manage any of this stuff. And the first thing she does is throw away her council, which makes sense because her council was going against her. But I'm just saying, Rhaenyra is Viserys' daughter because Viserys was not a ruler. He inherited Jaehaerys' peace. Anyway, Daemon is like, you're gonna have to kill Daron. And Rhaenyra is like, just silent about it. But this is why I feel like Alicent's motivation in the books were better, because she was like, as soon as Rhaenyra sits on the Iron Throne, my sons' lives are forfeit. And they would have been forfeit because Rhaenyra's children are bastards. And I don't know why everybody just tries to ignore this detail where they're like, Laenor accepted them. Laenor accepted them. House Valerian accepted them. But at the end of the day, they were legitimate contenders for the Iron Throne. They had the stronger right to the Iron Throne just based on precedence of the law. Yes, Viserys named Rhaenyra heir, but Rhaenyra didn't help herself with the rumors going around of her sons. And if we're going by show alone, they're bastards, and there's rumors going on. Eventually, there would have been a conflict between Rhaenyra's line and her brother's line, because one was legitimate and the other one wasn't. And Daemon knows this. He's like, you need to off Daron. He's a contender for the throne. He is the heir of the Greens, because we've got Aemond is gone missing right now, and we've got Daron. Obviously, they took out Melo. So, on the green side, it's only left with Daron. He is a contender for the throne. He's a general threat. You guys, anyway, I know you guys really love the black team, and I do. I mean, listen, I can say that I do love the black team as well, but I love the green team as well. But at the end of the day, like I've stopped backing any team at this point, and I'm just watching because I'm just like, this is a train wreck. This is a train wreck that began with Viserys, and at this point in time, I'm just watching just to see this drama unfold. So Daemon takes her to meet Daron, and Daron is silent. Well, we know, well, I knew, that Daron is an imposter, so he's keeping silent. And we've got Rhaenyra just asking questions. Where is Aemond? Where is Aegon? How much did your uncle Ormond know about the plot to usurp me? She's asking all these questions to a literal child, okay? A literal child who knows nothing, or even if he knew anything, he's in danger. He's never met her before. This is all new to him. Like, literally, Rhaenyra, you're really out here interrogating a child. But I'm not surprised, because Rhaenyra did ask for Aemond to be sharply questioned. And if you guys know what sharply questioned means in a medieval setting, it means being tortured into telling the truth. So she was willing to do that to a child who called out her sons for being illegitimate, which they are, which we're going to get to at the end of the day. Rhaenyra is maneuvering in a way that I'm not getting it. And obviously, like I said, like I'm not team black, I'm not team green anymore. I'm just watching for the drama. From an analysis point of view, I'm a huge fan, but at the end of the day, I feel like you guys give Rhaenyra and the black team so much grace, and some people don't give that grace to the green team. Altogether, these people need therapy, especially Rhaenyra. So, cut to, she goes to the council meeting where there's Mysaria, Lord Corlys, and there is Daemon in there. And Lord Corlys, oh yeah, there's the Maester in there as well. And basically they're asking her, like, what about your council? Are you going to bring them from Dragonstone? She's like, no, they betrayed me. I don't need them anymore. And I'm like, Rhaenyra, I know that your council is... I'm not going to argue with her on the point of her council, but at the end of the day, they fought for her when everybody else wasn't. When things got dicey and loyalties were tested, they stood by her, okay? They stood by their oath. And for her to just ignore them at Dragonstone is going to come back and bite her in the arse. So we've got Lord Corlys, and we've got this whole conversation of, hey, you have no money. The gold has been split up. Tywin Lannister, before he left King's Landing, he split up the gold. We do not know where the gold is. And Rhaenyra is like, just talking about her coronation. It needs to be grand. It needs to outshadow whatever Aegon had. You know, there needs to be a tourney. And I'm like, girl, you're in times of unrest and war. Your people have been starving. I know you need to be coronated, okay? But kings have been coronated on the battlefield, okay? If we're going by, like, the War of the Roses, the War of the Roses, King Henry, was it Henry? Yeah, King Henry. He was crowned on the Battle of Bosworth by his stepfather. So you do not need a big coronation to instill yourself as the new reigning monarch. Obviously, I understand where she's trying to come from. She's trying to come from the position of, nobody has taken my claim seriously. I finally sit in the Iron Throne, and I need to be instilled and crowned and legitimized by the High Septon. So she's coming on that aspect, and I'm like, girl, I know where you're coming from, but at this moment in time, you do not have the money to do that, and you do not have the luxury of operating like this. You have no money, you have no gold. So she's like, where is the gold gone? And they're like, listen, the guy who you would have asked about where the rest of the gold has gone, you killed. So she's out here blaming Alicent, she's blaming, the Maester, she's just trying to figure out, where is this gold? And it's like, listen, I don't know where the gold is. The person that you would have asked about the gold has been executed. And Daemon is just out here just laughing. And I'm just like, I think this is where Rhaenyra started really internalizing that sitting on the Iron Throne is not all that is cracked up to be. It's not all that is cracked up to be. So we can see, like, things in the capital are just insane. There's no grain for bread. When the blockade was implemented around King's Landing, which was done by Corlys and Rhaenyra, basically, like, the nobles within the city, they bought up all the resources and hoarded. They hoarded. So the people have been starving. And we see that, there's all this turmoil in King's Landing. And Rhaenyra, I guess, I don't know what she thought. Maybe she thought, like, honey, I'm in King's Landing. I've got my dragons. I am now sitting acting queen. I'm going to go get coronated. And I'm just going to, like, handle, like, disputes. It's going to be fine. I'm queen now, honey. I'm going to rule the 7 kingdoms. Girl, ruling is not all that it's cracked up to be. It's not all that it's cracked up to be. And this is why you need a good hand. And throughout all this, Corlys is very much just quiet. I don't know if it's because, like, he doesn't hold as much power as he used to before, because obviously his fleet is gone. High Tide been burned down. So he's really, like, sacrificed a lot for Rhaenyra. He sacrificed his house. He sacrificed his blood. He sacrificed his standing in the eyes of the lords of the 7 kingdoms, because he looks a damn fool. He looks a damn fool for what he's done, but he's been loyal to Rhaenyra's cause. So he's awfully quiet doing all of this stuff, and Rhaenyra is just, taking it all in. All this stuff needs to be done. All these problems are in the city. And Daemon is just laughing. He's like, what about the poor people? It's like, Daemon, honey, the poor people outnumber you. The poor people are in your castle. They shine your shoes. They iron your clothes. They cook your food. They're the ones that, you walk amongst in the street. You are outnumbered by the poor people, Daemon. So you can always easily see this Targaryen arrogance in Daemon. And you guys who've been saying that Daemon would be a great hand of the king to his brother, Viserys, this is probably why Viserys didn't have him anywhere near the Iron Throne. Always tried to push Daemon away. Because let's be real, guys. Daemon is not a politician. Daemon is a soldier. Daemon is an ally. Daemon is a soldier. Daemon is not. He's not a politician. He's not a politician. And unfortunately for you guys in Team Black, Rhaenyra isn't either. Rhaenyra isn't either. Okay? So Rhaenyra's whole issue here is that there's no gold. They don't know where the gold is. They need to find out where the gold. They have no money, and things are just kind of escalating in the city. And Daemon is like, this is an inconvenience. And I'm like, Daemon. Daemon! Anyway, Corlys is quiet throughout this whole thing. Awfully silent. So Rhaenyra is like, listen, we're going to send word to Lady Joanna Lannister, and we're going to ask her where the gold is, and we will know where the gold is. And we're also going to tell the high houses that they need to send tribute to their queen. And I'm like, okay. That's a good starting point. So we see that she's asking about Aemon still, and they know that he's burnt the garrison at Harrenhal, and then he promptly vanished, and we don't know where Vhagar is either. So that's where the small council meeting ends. He's out here sending Baela off to fly as a scout and looking for, obviously, Sheep Stealer and Vhagar. So we've got her, making implementations of what she wants to do. Now, that's where that small council meeting ends. Before she's like, oh, we need to offer rewards for any information. And Corlys is like, listen, you don't have any money. You don't have any money to, like, ask for rewards. She's like, the Riverlands are mine, so I don't have any use for Harrenhal anymore. So we will put that up. Anybody who brings in information that is actually good will get Harrenhal. And, there we go. And I'm like, Daemon, this would have been the time to just plug in Alyssa Rivers. But he did plug Alyssa Rivers in, but not in a way that would have given her Harrenhal. And we see this is going to come back to bite them in the arse. So we see that throughout, the keep, all these different household departments just want to hear from Rhaenyra, because there are shortages in many things. There's shortages in supplies. The rats have gotten into the stores and eaten all the candle wax, so they're going to be in the dark soon. So the lights are not going to be paid soon. The light bill is up for repayment, and they don't have the money and they don't have the stock either to do that. So yeah, we see that she's going through all of this, and then the Gold Cloak is like, listen, like, I need to go back to the city to my men. You need to appoint new Queen's Guard. And she's like, give it to Daemon, he'll do it. And we also see that basically she's just being bombarded by all these things that need to be done. And he's like, her gold cloak is like, listen, like the queen will get to this when she gets to this. She goes to see Alicent and Helena. So at this play, when her and Alicent meet, obviously accusations start flying. Alicent's like, I did what I told you I was gonna do. And then this is where, like, I think Helena, it dawns on Helena that, oh, my mother, like, really set this up. And Rhaenyra is like, listen, after all this is done and we know where Aemond is and Aegon and all of that, then I'll let you go. And it's like, this is why Alicent wasn't thinking about her children. She wasn't thinking about what this would do to Aemond, Daemon, they all have the same names. Aemond, Daeron, and Aegon. She just gave up Aegon, but she's forgetting about Daeron. So anyway, we see that Rhaenyra is like, listen, after all this, the dust settles, you guys can go. And it's like, no, they're not gonna let you go, okay? What happens if there's alliances to be made later on down in the future? You think she's gonna let Helena go? You guys have to be serious right now. Anyway, so they have that whole conversation, and you know, it's basically like, listen, I'll have Jaehaera brought to you for an hour a day, and we'll see where this goes. And then she goes has a conversation with the High Septim. The High Septim is like, listen, I deal in the Seven. We don't deal in dragons. And you need to understand that your people are bound together by the Seven. You need to understand the relationship that your people have with the Seven. I will not be crowning you. And Rhaenyra is very much gagged. I was like, Rhaenyra, why are you gagged? You out here praying to Valyrian gods and dragons and dragon riders. I ain't never seen you take a step in a sept apart from meeting Alicent there. So we see that this is where she really understands that she does not have the backing of the sept. And I was like, Rhaenyra, do not do anything crazy when it comes to the Septon, because you need the Citadel and you need the High Septons. She has a conversation with Corlys, Adam, and Ellen of Hall. And Corlys is like, as you know, like, these are my sons, as you've probably guessed. And she's like, I did not guess that, but I guess I can see it now that you're saying about it. And Corlys is like, I'd love for you to legitimize my sons, because I need an heir to, you know, my lands that have been to smithereens, basically. And Rhaenyra is very silent at that dinner, but we can also see that she's very uncomfortable. And I think this is where the shame came in, which Corlys clocked later on. He clocked that Rhaenyra was ashamed of, basically, she's ashamed of her actions, guys. This is where this man has sacrificed his blood, his titles, his money, his men, his honor, his standing in the Seven Kingdoms with the other lords to back Rhaenyra. And all he asks is for her to legitimize his sons. And it's not a hard ask, okay? Rhaenyra already called for Joffrey. Joffrey will be king, okay? Joffrey will be king. So why not let Lord Corlys have his heirs, Adam and Ilyn? She can't, because it will bring questions to her sons. But at the end of the day, Rhaenyra, you need to stand in the light. Like, this is the decisions that you made. Just give Corlys what he's asking for. He's not asking for a lot. He's just asking for you to legitimize his kids. And we see this backfires on her later. Then we cut to the scene where, you know, she goes to Daemon at night. I don't know what that scene was trying to imply, but the next morning we see her that she's preparing to have her first meeting with the small folk, where she hears, you know, what they want. She holds court with them, and we see that she's nervous. And we see that this is where I actually had to pause at 25 minutes and 16 seconds, where I was like, oh no, Rhaenyra does not know how to rule. Rhaenyra does not know how to rule. And it mirrored Aegon, her brother. And all this stems from Viserys, okay? And Daemon was no help in this. He was not even present. But we see that during all this court stuff that she's hearing, and she's hearing out the small folk, we can see that she's really stumped. And I think this is where, you know, it also got to her like, oh no. Like, I feel like people glorify the Iron Throne, but they don't really know what it takes to run a kingdom, let alone a city, let alone sit on the Iron Throne, and everybody wants something from you. So yeah, she was way out of her depths, and it showed here, unfortunately. It showed. And that is something that's gonna come back to bite her in the arse. And Corlys mirrored a bit of what Otto did with Aegon, where he was like, listen, like, maybe a conversation in a different setting, as in, like, we need to talk about this with the small council because we can't make decisions out here. So we see that she's very much overwhelmed. And then her and Aemon go to the Dragon Seas, where they're obviously going to knight them. And they ask them, how are you going to be styled? And Ulf is like, I'll be a Targaryen. And he's like, no, absolutely not. And I feel like this should have been a red flag to them to show that Rhaenyra is not really going to give you a lot. But anyway, so he styled Ulf the White, and then Hugh Hammer styled Hugh Hammer, and then when it comes to Alan, she's like Alan of Hall. So we see that she does not do what Corlys asked her to do, and that is going to come back to bite her in the arse. So after this whole scene, we see that Hugh goes to Rhaenyra and is like, listen, like, you promised that you'd look after me and my wife. And Rhaenyra's like, yeah, I know, but I haven't got my footing yet. But as soon as I do have my footing, I'll do exactly what I said I was going to do. At this moment in time, I was like, do the Targaryens have a publicist? Because they need a publicist ASAP. They need a publicist ASAP because this is not working out very well. And Hugh tells her, oh, my wife is at Tumbleton with my brother-in-law. So she's like, yeah, go send for word and I'll get you a house on Viserion Hill. And he was like, when will that be? And she's like, listen, as soon as I have my bearings, okay, I will do what I said I was going to do. And then straight from this, we see that obviously Rhaenyra has that little episode where she sees Viserys. And I was just like, she needs a therapist. This whole entire family needs a therapist. They need individual therapy and they need family therapy. Anyway, we see Alicent request that her father go be laid to rest in Old Town along with her mother, and Rhaenyra grants it. And she asks, Alicent basically tells Rhaenyra, like, listen, there's stuff you're going to have to do that's going to be painful to do, but you're a ruler, you can't do everything. And obviously this is as a result of Rhaenyra asking for advice. She's like, you ruled when my father was king and he couldn't rule, and, you know, her and Otto ruled. And I think some of this advice that Alicent gave, although it was well-meaning and honest advice, it's gonna not very work out well for her, okay? Especially Alicent. So obviously when all this stuff was happening and Rhaenyra was trying to figure out what to do, when obviously it was brought to attention that there's no resources in King's Landing, and Mysaria asked her, what would your father do? And she was like, hold a banquet? And I was like, Mysaria, you did not prepare your daughter. You do not prepare your daughter, you do not prepare your sons, but how can we expect somebody like Viserys to do anything apart from lay siege to the banquet table? So we see that Rhaenyra holds a banquet for the nobles and the merchants in the city, and she's basically like, this is what my people have been eating. My gold cloaks are at your residence. They're taking everything from your stalls, and it's going to be distributed to the city. And we see that this really puts the nobility against her. Because first of all, most of them really aren't with her at the moment. And most of all, the ones that wanted to get in good with her, now they have a gripe against her. First of all, and then she meets one lord when she's leaving the banquet. And he's like, yeah, I mean, people probably will forget for a week or two that you're the one that made a blockade of the city. And that they're the reason that that they're starving. And I was like, I mean, this is a hard situation to be in. And I don't even know, like, how you start from a maneuvering from this point when you're such a disadvantage. Yeah, I think it was Satoran Mandalay that she was talking to, who was just basically like, listen, like, you're doing something bad here in the sense of, people have a long memory and this is gonna only hold up for a bit. And he's right. Unfortunately, he's right. So we see that she and Daemon have a conversation, and when her and Daemon had this conversation, I was just like, ooh, Daemon is not a ruler. There is no money, okay? They are broke. They are broke. They don't have no credit from the bank. They are broke. They can barely keep the lights on, and they barely can put food on the table. And Daemon is out here like, Dorne could be ours. The free cities could be ours. Like, and I'm just like, Daemon, there's no money. There is no money. You can barely put on the lights. You can barely pay the light bill. And you're talking about Dorne waging war. And it's like, the kingdom is in chaos. You can't even pay your soldiers, you can't even pay your servants, you can't even put on the light bill. The light's about to be put out, and you're out here talking about we need to get to Dorne, we have 6 dragons, and it's like, Daemon is a soldier, he is not a politician. And he gets into High Valyrian, and you know when they start talking High Valyrian, they're like really serious about what they're trying to say. So we see that they get into all of that. And Rhaenyra's like, listen, we need to first of all manage this city. And then like we can turn our eyes outwards. And I'm like, the smartest thing Rhaenyra has done. But we can see Daemon is unhappy. Now she charges Daemon with going off to the Vale, to the Eyrie, to see about the Lady of the Vale, to get the coin that she promised that never actually materialized. And we see that Rhaenyra is being very dismissive of Baela. Now I'm like, you guys try to call Alicent a bad stepmother, or like Alicent climbed into Viserys's bed when her mother had barely like been cold, and it's like Rhaenyra did the exact same thing. Rhaenyra did the exact same thing that Alicent did. Rhaenyra climbed into bed with Daemon on the night of the funeral of his wife. Okay? They were married within months. She did the exact same thing Alicent did, but somehow you guys have a double standard when it comes to Rhaenyra. I understand like we all caping for Rhaenyra, but at some point you have to call a spade and just call out the character flaws in your character. And Daemon's still harping on about Rhaenyra having to obviously off Daeron, and she goes to visit Daeron, and obviously he's been carving a little bird, and then she goes to do her charitable situation for the day, where she hands out everything that she confiscated from the nobility to the poor folk, the small folk, and obviously that goes very well. She has a conversation with Mysaria where she's just like, I'm very angry. And it's like, Rhaenyra, you need therapy. You need therapy. So we see that she goes and has a conversation with Alicent, and she's like, Alicent, I have your son. And Alicent is like, when were you going to tell me about this? And this is why I'm saying Alicent was not thinking about her children. She wasn't thinking about Daeron when she made the decisions that she made. So obviously Rhaenyra is like, I could kill him. And Alicent's like, so I'm supposed to be happy that you're sending him to the wall? And Alicent's like, I've not seen Daeron in a while, like at least let me look upon him. So obviously she allows Alicent the opportunity to see Daeron, and as soon as Alicent walks in, she's like shaking her head like, this is not Daeron. I'm like, Alicent, really? You just saw that she was about to send your son to the wall. She could kill him. And the first thing you're going to do is put your son in danger again by saying, oh, this is not him. It's like, if I was Alicent, I would have been like, oh, Daeron, it's really nice to see you. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. You know, stay safe at the wall. Good luck. You know, she could have done what Tyrion did when Cersei thought that he had Tyrion's lover. Where Tyrion was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'll look after you. Like, be strong. Like, she couldn't even do that. She couldn't even pretend, okay, to protect her son. Because now that Rhaenyra knows that this is not Daeron, now she's like, did Ormond not think that I would find out that this was not Daeron? And it's like, Rhaenyra is very much needs... she needs anger management, she needs therapy, she's grieving, and she is way up out of her depths. Now, Alicent obviously throws fake Daeron under the bus, and real Daeron in direct line of a dragonfire, essentially. And then we see that word reaches Rhaenyra that Lord Ormond Hightower has taken Tumbletown. Now, when this happened, I was like, oh, and oh, because we know that Hugh Hammer's wife is in Tumbletown. So when whatever Rhaenyra chooses to do, basically Ormond is using the people of Tumbletown as a shield. He's using them as a human shield. I do not condone these acts, but at the end of the day, this is the House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, and this world is not good to people like... No, this world's not good to people like Helena Targaryen. This world is not good to people like Ned Stark. This world is very much savage. It's cutthroat. So he's using them as human shields. And we see that obviously now Rhaenyra is just kind of like, what? And obviously if you've watched the next trailer for episode 4, you can obviously see that she's just like, burn them all. And they're like, listen, like, what, are you gonna burn the whole of Tumbleton? And it's like, this is where I think Hugh the Hammer? Yeah, I think this is why Hugh the Hammer is going to, turn cloak. Because how is he gonna fight Lord Ormond when his wife is part of the human shields down there? So yeah, I give this episode a B. It's a very strong episode. I think it really showed the emotional disconnect that Rhaenyra is having and how she is struggling to acclimate to being a ruler, and how now she's finally sat on the Iron Throne, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. So yeah, leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. I'll catch you in the next one, and make sure you like and subscribe. Welcome to the end of the video, and thank you very much for making it to the end. Make sure you check out Vertigo Honor Bound by Blood, the first installment in the Vertigo book series. It is set in 2095 at the heart of the Imperial Champion regime, where Emperor Gregory Champion rules over Earth and the colonies stretching out across the solar system, where there is a virus called the Omega virus that has mutated and changed the political landscape of Earth. This is a story about factions, about coming of age, about the importance of being firm in what you believe in a world where bloodlines matter. What faction are you?